importante y es realmente notable los avances que se vienen dando en este campo. Y en este sentido queríamos compartir que en Argentina desde el año 2021 se viene implementando la Red Nacional de Respuesta a varamientos de fauna marina. Es un programa que está dirigido o centrado en lo que sería la Secretaría de Ambiente y en estos momentos se están dando talleres de capacitación a lo largo de todas las provincias para mejorar la respuesta a varamientos, así que en el futuro esperamos poder presentar mayor información. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Would New Zealand, as a chair of this working group, wish to respond to the question by Costa Rica? Yeah, please pass the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly in the Strandings initiative, there is a lot of feedback and vibrant discussion, and that is brought to the working group. So there are many opportunities for countries to provide feedback to issues and interests they may have around stranding. I would suggest the two channels, to the Stranding Initiative Coordinator and to our working group. On the second issue from the US, I've noted the US intervention, and if it's the will of the meeting, my summary report will be amended accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no contracting governments anymore, so non-member countries, no. IGOs, also no. I have NGOs now, so please pass the floor to the first NGO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whale and Dolphin Conservation, presenting to you a joint intervention by 18 NGOs, which will be named in the report of this meeting. We are deeply concerned about the ongoing whaling activities by two contracting governments under objection and reservation to the IWC moratorium. Together, they have killed more than 17,500 whales since the ban on commercial whaling came into effect in 1986. Norway has hunted 16,124 minke whales, and Iceland 1,000 fin whales and 453 minke whales. We regret that both nations self-allocate quotas that are not calculated using the version of the revised management procedure accepted by the Commission. Also, neither country provides the detailed welfare data that the IWC resolution states should be reported to the IWC. They chose instead to report data to NUMCO, which only requires monitoring of hunts every 10 years. We call on the Norwegian and Icelandic governments to stop authorizing all commercial whaling hunts and trade in whale products, and to withdraw their respective objection and reservation to the moratorium on commercial whaling. In the meantime, we call on them to collect and report recent time to death, struck and lost, and instantaneous death rate data to the IWC, as well as relevant legislation. In particular, we look forward to receiving a full report from Iceland on recent changes on its whaling regulations following the documentation of several welfare deficiencies in its fin whale hunts this summer at the next meeting. We also look forward to learning of steps taken in Iceland to address these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Please pass the floor to the second NGO.
KNBK Greenland. Greenland has submitted some very strict regulations on how the whaling should be conducted. And in accordance with the executive order made in December 2018 for preservation and hunt for large whales, it is described whom is allowed to conduct the whaling, which equipments that are to be used for the whaling, and specification for what vessels to be used in the hunt, the weapons, and which killing methods that are allowed and the mandatory requirements to conduct biological surveys and tests of whales are included in this executive order. And KNABK is proud of being part of this work conducted closely with the Ministry of Fishery and Hunting in Greenland. And I can assure you that there are strict regulations on how the whaling is being conducted and by whom. So I can assure you that we have very strict regulations on dealing with all matters in how the whaling is conducted. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we have concluded this agenda sub-item, and we heard that the report will be slightly amended to include additional information. I didn't hear any objections to the report, neither were there any during the meeting itself. So I assume that report can be adopted with these amendments. I see no objections, so I would take the report as adopted. We have still the last sub-item, which is any other matters. So any interventions on this? I don't see any. So with this, I close the agenda item 10. And let us move to the agenda item 11. You have the right slide. Thank you. This is management issues and infractions subcommittee. And here we follow the same steps. So first, we will have the report of the infractions subcommittee. The infractions subcommittee met on Sunday morning, and the report was made available to the contracting governments the following day. This meeting was chaired by our IWC Vice Chair, Commissioner Diallo from the Republic of Guinea, who stood in for Norway for this year. So I pass the floor to Vice Chair Diallo. Please take the floor. Republic of Guinea. For Commissioner.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai eu le privilège de présider le sous-comité des infractions et avec plaisir, je viens vous présenter le rapport. Le sous-comité des infractions s'est réuni le 16 octobre 2022 ici à Porte-Rose. Notre rapport est présenté sous la forme du document IWC68 Report Infraction 01. Premièrement, nous avons examiné les résumés des captures et des rapports d'infraction reçus par la Commission pour la période 2018-2021. Ceci figure aux annexes 3 et 4 de notre rapport. Des rapports d'infraction ont été reçus de la part des pays suivants: la Croatie, le Danemark, l'Islande, le Japon, le Pérou, la République de Corée, Saint-Vincent et les Grenadines et les États-Unis. La Norvège et la Fédération de Russie ont communiqué au secrétariat les informations requises sur leur rapport comme indiqué dans les rapports du comité scientifique. Les captures sont résumées dans les tableaux 1 à 4 de l'annexe 3 de notre rapport. L'Islande, la République de Corée et les États-Unis ont signalé des infractions détaillées dans les tableaux 3 à 6 de l'annexe 4. Il n'y a eu aucun rapport d'infraction non résolu lors des saisons précédentes. Nous avons ensuite examiné les modalités de surveillance des différentes opérations de chasse à la baleine, comme indiqué au point 4 et au tableau 1 de l'annexe 4 de notre rapport. Le point 5 résume les informations requises ou demandées au titre du chapitre 6 du règlement. Le point suivant de notre ordre du jour concernait la présentation des lois et réglementations nationales. Le tableau résumant ces éléments est présenté au tableau 1 de notre rapport. Aucun rapport n'a été fait sur la disponibilité, les sources et le négoce des produits baleiniers. Le Royaume-Uni a souligné la nécessité pour les pays de faire un rapport sur la disponibilité, les sources et le négoce des produits baleiniers, étant donné que plus de 2000 tonnes de viande de baleine ont été échangées à l'échelle internationale depuis la CBI 67. Il n'y avait pas d'autres questions. Sur ce, je conclus mon rapport et je vous remercie.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for the report and for chairing the subcommittee on such a short note. And I thank the subcommittee for the work done. Now we move to the next step, next sub-item, which is the discussion of this report. And I open the floor for interventions by contracting governments. Czech Republic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Always first. Sorry for this. The Czech Republic, speaking on behalf of the EU member states part to the ICRW, would like to express thanks to Chair of the Infraction Subcommittee, its members, and the Secretariat for providing the report reviewing the summary of catches received by the IWC for 2018 to 2021 period, and that of infraction reports received by the Commission for the same period, and summarizing information on the surveillance of whaling operation in that period. The EU and its member states party to the convention thank the countries who provided the information on this important part of the Commission's activities. Moreover, because within the same period, means since the IWC67 meeting, no less than 2,000 tons of whale meat have been internationally traded. We regret that there is no information on this important issue in the report despite 5 previous IWC resolutions. We strongly encourage the respective contracting governments to report on the international trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Australia. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia thanks the Honourable Commissioner for the Republic of Guinea for stepping in and chairing the Infractions Committee so ably and for his report. We also thank the Secretariat for compiling and presenting the infractions information. Australia thanks the member nations for submitting infraction information and notes the generally low numbers of infractions in this 4-year reporting period. Australia would like to particularly thank the Republic of Korea for their detailed report on infractions in their waters and for their actions to detect and investigate the incidents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have no more contracting governments. So non-member, no. IGOs, no. Any interventions by observer NGOs? No. So with this, we have concluded this part. And as there was agreement on this report, I also conclude that we can adopt the report of this subcommittee. Any objections? I see none. So when we will be adopting outcomes of this meeting, I will take it as adopted. Now we have the next agenda sub-item here, which is 11.4, catches by non-member nations. And this agenda item allows discussion of catches of non-member nations as reported to IWC68. And those catches by non-member nations were made available over the past few months and are available on the meeting website under the document inf/68/3.1/01. I open the floor for interventions under this agenda sub-item, first to the contracting governments. I see no request for the floor. Oh, yes. Antigua and Barbuda, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as fellow commissioners are aware, this has been an issue that has been plaguing the IWC for quite a while. I've heard several interventions by non-member nations over the years, some of which have vilified some nations for pursuing their rights outside of the IWC on the specific provisions of the United Nations Law of the Sea Convention that have given the right and privilege to its members to seek and pursue their goals of harvesting living marine resources that are highly migratory under the coordination of international organizations. It's not only the IWC who have the international authority that would allow member countries that are parties to the Law of the Sea Convention to pursue their country's desire and interest to harvest highly migratory species such as large cetaceans. At least Antigua and Barbuda, will concede that the IWC is the premier authority internationally to manage whaling. But we have all but given up this fiduciary responsibility. This has caused tremendous problems within our organization. The financial crisis that we are experiencing is all of a result of our inability to undertake the responsibilities that is given to us to ensure that our members' interests are realized within the framework of proper management strategies for whaling. In that regards, Mr. Chair, our lack of ability to understand and carry out our responsibility as an organization have created great hardship, financial hardship, not only to this organization, but to member states, especially developing countries. We may be asking, where Antigua and Barbuda is going with this line of argument, but I just want to let you know that is as a result of our inability to proper manage whaling that is causing developing countries not to have a voting right because of our inability to pay the increase in contributions that we have to pay. Actions have consequences. And the consequences that we are experiencing here because of our action is felt more by developing countries. We need whaling countries back into these organizations. We all know that the way in which contributions are calculated is based on the activities of countries, especially those whaling countries. We must find a way, Mr. Chair, to encourage those countries that are still desirous of harvesting abundant whale species to do so under the management authority of our organization. But you can't expect them to come back. You can't expect them under the harsh conditions that are established here by the anti-whaling countries for them to come back and perform the right that is given to them under the Law of the Sea Convention, because we are not making it possible. It is everybody's business, because it comes right back to the financial problems that we're facing. Canada left. Norway left. Japan has gone. The US is now observing actions at NAMCO. Is the US the next country that is going to leave us? Those are the questions we have to ask. And then the anti-whaling countries are doubling down. This is a conservation-oriented organization, they're saying. Whaling have no rights here. Well, give it up. Let's give up whaling. And let us congratulate those countries that have gone to pursue whaling under the authority of another international organization that has the ability to manage whaling. Those are the hard questions we have to ask inside here. That is why, Mr. Chair, we have to be careful about how we are pursuing the business of the IWC now. Voting to increase our ability to stop whaling will not do this organization any good. We need to sit down and ask ourselves, is this organization the authority to manage whale species now? Has the international authority for managing whale species? Or are we putting ourselves into oblivion? Those are the questions that we have to ask. Are we going to continue to vote to lock the oceans away from those of us who want to pursue the rights given to us under the major convention that governs the way we harvest ocean resources? Whaling outside of the IWC is an issue that we have to spend a special time to debate. And I want to make a recommendation or propose a recommendation, Mr. Chair, that this commission call a special meeting of contracting governments to assess the implications of what is happening as far as whaling is concerned outside of the IWC, and how that is fulfilling the desires of IWC members that wanted to pursue their rights under our convention, the ICRW, but is forced out, and what remedies we can offer to bring these countries back into this organization so that we can function normally. I would like to propose that recommendation. And I will let you know, Mr. Chair, if we can adopt that recommendation to have an honest discussion on these matters. I will be Antigua and Barbuda as the major sponsor of the resolution that was tabled yesterday. I will be willing to postpone the tabling of that resolution if we can agree to have an honest debate on this issue.
Thank you, Commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda. I will first open the floor also to other contracting governments. Republic of Palau, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. We like to associate ourselves with the very eloquent plea by the Honorable Delegate of Antigua and Barbuda. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Saint Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation would support the call for a special meeting to discuss whaling outside of the IWC. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, technicians. I see no other request for the floor. Are there any desires from non-member governments to? No. From IGOs? No. From NGOs? I have one. Yeah, please. Sorry, that, yeah. I have, give the floor to that one, yeah. Thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of Opus Oceani Foundation. In the interests of good governance, dialogue, common sense and compromise, this hall would be well advised to take up the offer extended by Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you. I have another NGO.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking on behalf of the International Fund for Animal Welfare and Animal Welfare Institute. Welcome the earlier comment from Antigua and Barbuda to remind us about the UN Convention on Under the Law of the Sea. It's worth bearing in mind that we recall here that convention, under that convention, states have a duty to cooperate with appropriate international organizations. That organization, of course, in regards to whaling is the International Whaling Commission. And states also have a duty to cooperate with regard to the rights of other states. This applies regardless of where any whaling activity takes place, whether on the high seas or within a state's exclusive economic zone. It includes duties to share information, monitor impacts, conduct environmental assessments. And this, in the context of the IWC, this establishes a duty upon non-member states to participate meaningfully in its deliberations, and including the scientific committee. Non-member states must also consult each other when setting up measures for shared stocks and to coordinate and ensure the conservation and development of such stocks, taking into account the whole range of the species. Mr. Chair, these are serious responsibilities under international law for both members and non-members of the IWC, and leaving the IWC does not absolve member states of these duties to cooperate through this organization on the management, conservation and study of whales. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I have Costa Rica from member states. Please pass the floor to Costa Rica.
Gracias, señor presidente. Tomo la palabra para solicitar una recomendación al buró para que se analice la posibilidad de limitar el número, el tiempo que cada comisionado tiene para dirigirse al plenario. Yo creo que en muchos espacios internacionales eso es costumbre. Se puede limitar el tiempo. Yo creo que en 5 o 10 minutos se puede dar el core de lo que uno quiere expresar. En ese sentido, quisiera que en la próxima reunión del buró se pudiera considerar esto para esta reunión y así ser más eficientes con el tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Costa Rica. I have a non-member country, Japan. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the sake of a clarification, I'd like to provide some information to the floor of International Whaling Commission as a non-member government observer. After the withdrawal from ICRW, we have been providing the data, as just explained, through the report to IWC and especially to the scientific committee. And Japanese scientists have been active participants of the scientific committee for the last 4 years, as evidenced, and probably you can confirm with the chairs of the scientific committee. And we are also engaged in cooperative research activities with IWC under the name of IWC Power. Japan is also cooperating with NAMCO through its scientific committee as well as general council. So our position is we will follow exactly the wording of United Nations, the Law of the Sea, Article 65, and we will continue to respect the international law. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Japan. I have no other request for the floor, and we had a proposal from Antigua and Barbuda on recommendations. Now, we have rules of procedure that also regulate motions for recommendations. Usually, here text should be provided in advance. So I would pass the floor back. Okay, I see Australia, but then I would pass the floor back to the commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda to explain how he would like to proceed with this. But first, Australia.
Thank you, Chair. So this intervention is in part way to seek some clarification on how you intend to respond to the proposal from the Commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda, and we thank him for his suggestions and his intervention. If I may, while I have the floor, I may make a couple of comments. The proposal from Antigua and Barbuda is new, of course, so like all such significant proposals, we would need time to consider such an issue. But some initial comments are clearly the obvious point that this organisation is facing enormous budgetary challenges, and to convene a special meeting would have massive implications. I won't go further on that, but that's an obvious issue. But I'm slightly curious as to what the meeting would be focused on. And I say that because Australia, and I believe many other parties to the ICRW, respect the rights of non-member countries to conduct whaling under the other relevant international instruments. We similarly respect the rights of commercial whaling countries such as Norway and Iceland to conduct whaling within the legal framework of the ICRW. Despite our policy position opposing commercial whaling, we respect their legal right to conduct the endeavours they do. We similarly respect the right of the government of Japan to make a decision to withdraw from the ICRW and to conduct its whaling as it has been since it departed. So I'm not clear as to what the major issue that would be addressed at such a meeting would be. Every party to this convention is able to bring forward serious proposals to conduct commercial whaling, and they would be debated under the rules of the organisation and subject to the decisions of the organisation. So these are my opening remarks. They are meant respectfully to try and understand what is being requested. But generally, I think a proposal of this nature would really require a thoughtful paper that could come to this commission and allow time for proper consideration and debate before any such decisions were made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And before passing the floor back to Commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda, I would also say that your intervention will be duly noted in the report of this meeting. That is something that is usually done. There is a. Do you wish to respond?
In the context of the recommendation, Mr. Chair?
Yes, and
Yes.
in the context of
Yeah.
this initial reaction also from Australia.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Antigua and Barbuda is aware that our recommendation needs to be drafted and put before members. We are also aware that there is some urgency to this recommendation, given that member states' attendance to this meeting, the number of delegates they have in their delegations, determine the level of their contributions. If you review historical records, you will observe that the major contributors to the IWC has always been those countries that are involved in whaling activities. Since the departure of most of those countries away from the IWC, and the IWC find itself in what I will call, quote unquote, quote, a predicament where their traditional avenues of funding have been seriously depleted because some countries have either withdrawn or reduced the size of their delegation. We are finding much difficulties in undertaking the activities that this organization is required to undertake to ensure that whales are properly conserved and managed. I am appealing to this body to let us see how we can, within our current rules of procedure, one, accept that we are in a predicament as far as financing is concerned. Two, accept that this is as a result of not being able to avail ourselves of the opportunity of the traditional areas of contribution to our organization from those contracting governments that traditionally have been paying the lion's share of the funds that we use. And three, realizing that of the categories of whaling which our convention permit, we are only managing one Aboriginal subsistence whaling. Most of the whaling activities that are conducted in the international community is not being managed by this organization. Yesterday, I spoke about the elephant in the room. That's what it is. And in listening to the distinguished delegate of Australia, I have a sense that Australia also is feeling the need for us to come together and discuss this problem. It's not about the need to do it, but how we're going to do it. And I'm open to suggestions from the Australian delegation and for other delegations that would think that this is necessary to do. If we cannot debate or discuss an obvious issue that is affecting our work, there's no need for us to be here. It's a challenging issue, but we are up for challenges, and we must not abandon challenges that can renew us and make us a better organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Antigua and Barbuda. Given the time, I'm tempted to adjourn for the moment this agenda item because we deserve our coffee break now. And continue after the coffee break. And I would kindly invite commissioners of Australia and Antigua and Barbuda and maybe some others that want to discuss some ideas to have coffee together during the coffee break. And then I hope we can come to a conclusion after a coffee break. I see no objection, so let's adjourn this session now and this agenda item. Let us have a coffee break, and we meet again here in half an hour, so 10 after 11.
room. This will be in the Pharaoh's room at 1:30 in the afternoon. And Pharaoh's room is just a few doors down from the Secretariat office. I hope some of you can join us. It'll be brief, 15 minutes. We just want to celebrate the continued collaboration between our two organizations, which has allowed this incredible work on entanglement response with David Matilla's leadership. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I would just ask the Secretariat to put again on the slide with the agenda items so that colleagues can see where we are. So catches by non-member missions, and I open again this agenda item. I saw commissioners from Antigua and Barbuda and Australia and some others having some thoughts during the coffee break. And I would pass the floor back to Commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda to explain what was the outcome, or what would be his proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the break, Antigua and Barbuda and the delegation of Australia were able to have a short discussion on the proposal or recommendation, sorry, that was made by Antigua and Barbuda. Both parties to these discussions agreed that the time constraints that we have during this session might not provide justice to a useful recommendation that would benefit more by well thought out context if we put it up for adaptation at this moment. So what we conceded that, both parties, and what we perceived, and I'm carefully choosing my words, what we perceive as a way forward would be for Antigua and Barbuda to contextualize the body of this recommendation. Then we would share it with Australia, the representative and the delegation of Australia during the intercessional period. We would develop it together. We'd encourage civil society to make an input, and we will look again at its usefulness and decide whether or not we will bring it back to IWC69. That is the essence to what we agreed to. So basically, I don't know if I should explain it a little bit more simple, but basically we will work together during the intercession to develop something without any initial commitment as to how far it will reach. Ask other state parties and civil society, if needs be, to make a contribution, and then we bring it to IWC69. I don't know if that is what Australia sees, but yes, so that is what we agreed to.
Thank you, Antigua and Barbuda for this proposal. Will be also can be noted in the report, and with this, okay, I see US. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to offer the United States support to work with Antigua, Barbuda, and Australia on that effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can ask if there are some more countries that are already at this moment ready to join. Okay, I see none at this moment, but in the intersessional period, I'm sure there will be enough opportunities. Okay, I see UK and St. Lucia.
With apologies, Chair. Thank you. Coming in a little bit late, but we would also like to offer our support on any of the development. Thank you.
Thank you. St. Lucia.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is a given that St. Lucia will be part of the small committee.
Thank you. Any other interested countries? Okay, I see no country on my list. So for the moment, those that have expressed their interest here, but as I said, for sure in the intersessional period, there will be enough opportunities to participate in some way. Thank you. And with this, we can close this sub-item. And as usually, we have the agenda sub-item and the other matters. No request for the floor. So with this, we completed the agenda item 11, and the report will be brought to the adoption on our final day on this proposal. Yeah, correct. Sorry, I have India. I presume that's still any other matters. Okay, India, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the work done by the management issues and infraction subcommittees. We would like to stress that the best practices in the management of cetacean conservations be shared by the member states in a cohesive format for its replication. This will facilitate to enrich the biodiversity as a whole in respective habitat. Thanks.
Thank you. India. So with this, we can close this agenda item 11 and move to the agenda item 12 on the Conservation Committee. And as explained on Monday, now there will be an opportunity for a bit more in-depth report based also on the feedback that you provided to Conservation Committee leadership between Monday and now. And I will ask now the chair and/or vice chair of the Conservation Committee to present us this report. The one that wishes to present, just please press the button. Okay, please, floor to the UK.
Thank you, Chair. Let's hope the IT works for me today. So on Monday, you heard the chair of the Conservation Committee, Lorenzo, give an overview of the progress achieved on a number of key important issues. Today, I'm talking you through the reports and some of the key recommendations from 2020 and 2022. that we'll be asking the Commission to endorse. So in 2020, the Conservation Committee meeting was held virtually due to the pandemic. The most recent Conservation Committee was held on Friday, and it covered intersessional work from 2018 to 2022. Discussion covered strategic issues, engagement with other organisations and funding, as well as updates on the following work streams: whale sanctuaries, bycatch, whale watching, conservation management plans, ship strikes, marine debris, anthropogenic underwater noise, climate change, chemical pollution, ecosystem functioning, and species and populations of urgent or emerging concern. As you heard on Monday, a midterm review was conducted during the last intersessional period. Outcomes from this process suggested that overall, there was no need to revise the strategic plan, which runs for a further 4 years until 2026. And the Conservation Committee recommendations, work plan and strategic plan are being suitably progressed. The Conservation Committee endorsed the report for the midterm review, along with the suggested edits, which will be posted on the IWC website after this meeting. The Conservation Committee also accepted the draft work plan for 2022 to 2024 and working methods, which will be uploaded to the IWC website and maintained as a living document. Regarding voluntary conservation reports for the Conservation Committee, the Chair thanked those contracting governments that had submitted reports and encouraged others to do so. At its meeting in 2018, the Conservation Committee endorsed a proposal to replace the current system of voluntary reporting with an integrated database. The Secretariat has been progressing a technical specification for the database, which was further refined after discussion at CC 2020. And an update was presented on the developments of this conservation database at the most recent meeting. The Conservation Committee agreed that the Conservation Committee Planning Group will work with Australia to adapt the scientific committee process for national progress reports so that it aligns with the Conservation Committee. Annual reminders will be issued to submit voluntary conservation reports, and that New Zealand, the UK and Azkabans will work to test the conservation database to make sure it is practical. Moving on to bycatch. So the chair of the bycatch standing working group gave an update on progress on the first 4 strategic objectives in the work plan: programme coordination, knowledge gathering, developing and testing bycatch mitigation and monitoring, and bringing about a change in attitudes within the fishing community. The bycatch mitigation initiative is designing pilot projects, which are to be locally led in 7 locations and focused on small-scale fisheries in both marine and freshwater environments. Pilot projects will allow the BMI to apply multidisciplinary experimental approaches to bycatch mitigation, monitoring and management. The BMI is also developing its capacity building program through technical workshops on the bycatch risk assessment tool in several countries, and further sessions are planned. The working group and the committee voiced strong support for the FAO Common Oceans project to work with various partners, including IOTC, WCPFC and SPC in the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. The expert panel established in 2018 has been very active in these and other regards. Its membership will be reviewed after IWC68 to fill expertise and geographical gaps, and the updated terms of reference were endorsed by the CC. I'll briefly hand over to Stephanie as chair of the standing working group to see if she has anything to add.
Please pass the floor to Belgium.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I would just briefly like to add that the BMI welcomes further cooperation and inputs from contracting government and also researchers, especially for the development and the implementation of the different pilot projects that we would like to roll out in the next coming years. And more information on this can be found in the report that we have submitted. I would also like to make use of this opportunity to once again thank Margarita Tarsia the previous bycatch coordinator who did a tremendous job in getting all the work on the bycatch mitigation initiative on the rails. And she has left a huge legacy, and we are happy also to welcome Cecilia Pasadore as the new coordinator for bycatch within the Secretariat. Then I think I'm trying to scroll through my notes. Yes. Then my final words, as I am stepping down as chair of the standing working group of the bycatch mitigation initiative, I would like to reiterate that it has been a pleasure and an honor for me to have been a part of this flagship initiative of the IWC and to see how our impact is growing and how we can support also small scale fisheries in mitigating bycatch. And it is also my pleasure to hand over the chair to Anne-Marie Svoboda from the Netherlands, who will do a tremendous job in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I'm sure I echo all of the Conservation Committee when I say thank you so much for all of the work you've been doing to progress this. It wouldn't be where it was if it wasn't for your excellent leadership. So moving on to whale watching. So the whale watching principles and guidelines introduced in 1996 were intended to help support development of whale watching around the world. At its meeting in 2019, the SC updated these guidelines to address emerging issues and technologies such as drones. At the 2020 meeting, the CC tasked the Standing Working Group on Whale Watching to review these amendments and report back. The Conservation Committee was presented with these with the updated guidelines on Saturday and endorsed the Whale Watching Work Plan and editorial protocol for the Whale Watching Handbook, as well as the IWC principles and guidelines for whale watching. And I would also just like to thank Ryan as chair of the Standing Working Group for Whale Watching for all of the work he's done on that. So moving on to conservation management plans. As mentioned on Monday, the IWC adopted CMPs in 2008 as an adaptive, flexible and tailored management tool to improve the conservation outcomes for the most at-risk cetacean populations. The two main bodies responsible for progressing the Commission's work on CMPs are the Conservation Committee Standing Working Group on Conservation Management Plans and the Scientific Committee's Subcommittee on Cetacean Stocks that are or might be the subject of conservation management plans. At the meeting on Saturday, we received updates on the progress of each of the existing CMPs and discuss any recommendations for next steps, including endorsement of the creation of a vice chair for the Standing Working Group, endorsement of a work plan and strategic plan, as well as specific recommendations relating to North Pacific grey whales, Southeast Pacific southern right whales, and the endorsement of the Franciscana campaign. I'll now hand over to Australia as the chair of the SWG CMP.
Please the mic to Australia, but you have to press it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Australian Government has been pleased to support the IWC's Conservation Management Plan program since 2009. Since then, 5 conservation management plans for at-risk cetacean populations have been developed by IWC member governments, informed by the advice and expertise of the Scientific Committee. This includes a CMP for South American river dolphin species established in 2021, the first for a freshwater cetacean. CMP actions have ranged from the development of a memorandum of understanding between the governments of Chile and Peru for the protection of the East and South Pacific southern right whale, research efforts to understand population dynamics, including acoustic monitoring and satellite tagging, entanglement response training, and expert workshops. This year, a public awareness campaign was developed by Argentina to bring attention to the threats facing the Franciscana dolphin, which you can see on the screen. We encourage you all to attend the voluntary funds event at 7 p.m. tonight in the Emerald Ballroom to learn more about this campaign and other IWC programs and initiatives. But alas, I don't think there will be any more dancing. Australia thanks the Conservation Committee leadership and the CMP coordinators and range state governments for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia, and thank you for your continued leadership on all things CMPs. If anyone is interested in being a vice chair, please feel free to have a chat with Australia and volunteer. So next up is ship strikes. At IWC 57 in 2005, the Conservation Committee agreed to address whales being killed or seriously injured by ship strikes, recognising that the issue is also considered by the IWC Scientific Committee through its non-deliberate human-induced mortality subcommittee. The Conservation Committee established a ship strikes working group, which has reported progress regularly since 2006. At the CC meeting on Saturday, we received an update from its ship strike working group to review relevant work from the Scientific Committee. It will allow the committee to consider the progression of IWC work on ship strikes between 2020 and 2022, and will allow us to review the draft work plan. So on Saturday, the CC endorsed the new strategic plan, which runs until 2032, and proposed the work plan for 22 to 24. We also supported the establishment of an expert panel and the funding of the data manager position. I'd just like to extend my thanks to Dave Weller for his leadership on work on ship strikes, and Sharon Livermore, who is not here at the moment but has taken over chairing that group. Moving on then to marine debris. So we've already heard quite a lot about this under various issues, including the upcoming plastics resolution. The co-chair of the International Correspondence Group on Marine Debris, Mark Simmons, introduced a work plan for 2022 to 2024. This work plan was endorsed by the Conservation Committee. There was also some discussion around a statement of support for the global Ghost Gear initiative, which was also endorsed by the CC. So on anthropogenic underwater noise, the chair of the Intersessional Correspondence Group provided an update on intersessional work and noted that 6 topics of interest had been identified: seismic exploration, vessel noise, military sonar, underwater construction, operational activities, and destruction of ammunition. A questionnaire to compile global information on marine seismic surveys for hydrocarbon exploration was also developed and approved by the SC, and was subsequently endorsed by the CC following some helpful amendments from the USA. Moving on to climate change. So climate change is identified as a priority area in the Conservation Committee's strategic plan. A combined Conservation Committee, Scientific Committee virtual workshop on climate change was held in December 2021. Although the workshop proceedings would help the Commission to understand this important threat to cetaceans, it was highlighted that science was developing rapidly, and the workshop had recommended various areas of further research. To help address this, the CC endorsed the establishment of a new intersessional group on climate, which would take into account the latest information on cetacean populations, provide clear advice on tools to mitigate the negative impact of climate change and build resilience, and seek to develop an IWC climate change response programme. I'll now hand over to Mark for any further updates.
Thank you, Kat. Just to add, it's great that we have this new way forward for this clearly vitally important issue. and that we're taking this forward under the Conservation Committee. We need to recognise, of course, that this is a multifaceted and fast developing issue. For example, the relationship between climate change and the release of pathogens into wildlife populations is in the media just today. And in order to make our work effective and fully informed as we start to develop the IWC Climate Change Response Programme, we'll need to populate this new intersessional group with people. So please do let us know if you're interested in joining in. And clearly we will also be looking to other expert international bodies to help us in this new endeavour. And I know that there's been some very recent correspondence from the distinguished scientist who leads the climate change work at the Convention for Migratory Species and our Executive Secretary. And this includes an important opportunity for collaboration. And I hope, Kat, it's okay if we take a few minutes here to ask the representative of CMS to update us on this. Thank you.
Thank you. CMS is planning a workshop on climate change and migratory species to be held in the second quarter of next year. The workshop would help prepare input to the next conference of the parties to CMS, scheduled for October 2023. Given the role of cetaceans in maintaining the balance of the marine ecosystem, and indeed their role in relation to climate change, CMS would be happy to continue working with IWC on this topic, and it would be excellent if IWC was able to participate in the planned workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jenny. So moving on to ecosystem functioning. At its 2018 meeting, the Conservation Committee Planning Group considered how the CC could address Resolution 2016-3 related to cetaceans and their contributions to ecosystem functioning. At the CC meeting in 2020, the committee agreed to a proposal to hold a workshop on the socio-economic value of cetaceans to ecosystem functioning. The chair of the intersessional group provided an update on the virtual workshop held in April 2022, which looked at the socio-economic value of cetaceans to ecosystem functioning. The workshop proposed in the short term the development of a pilot project to assess the socio-economic values of a single species to simplify the number of services to be valued. The CC endorsed the report, but noted that further discussion was needed on the development of the pilot project. This will be brought to the SC meeting next year for input and subsequently discussed further at the CCPG meeting. As you heard from our presentation and the SC's presentation on Monday, the Extinction Initiative aims to clearly, factually, and publicly explain why the SC is concerned about the extinction of a particular species or population. A section of the IWC website has been developed to explain extinction in general terms and provide an overview of the actions that the Commission has endorsed in response to each major threat. The CC endorsed the Extinction Initiative with an amendment to the process to seek endorsement from the Commission at biennial meetings or in urgent intersessional situations through another mechanism, potentially using the silence procedure. There was a paper presented on Saturday which outlined responses from a survey of worldwide experts seeking their views on the biggest challenges to conservation. After some discussion, the CC endorsed the creation of an intersessional group to develop recommendations for how to overcome challenges to conservation efforts and make them more effective. I'll hand over to Mark Simmons, who will be chairing that group, in case he has anything to add. He doesn't have anything to add. That's rare. Moving on then. So that takes us to just the Conservation Committee offices, which Lorenzo ran through on Monday. And just, I suppose, to in case I have forgotten to thank anyone who has been chairs of standing working groups to support the work of the Conservation Committee, I'd just like to extend thanks on behalf of myself and Lorenzo. And last but certainly not least, is this handsome man. I just wanted to take the opportunity to personally thank Lorenzo for his many, many years of hard work chairing the ECC. We were trying to work it out yesterday, and I think it's been 12 years that he's been chairing. And while I've only been working with him directly for a few years, I have genuinely enjoyed every minute of it. And under his leadership, the Conservation Committee has delivered, tangible and meaningful benefits to cetacean conservation. So you will be certainly missed by all as chair, Lorenzo, and I have very big shoes to fill. So that's all from me. But yeah, just thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Kat, for the report and of course for the work done, as well as Belgium, Australia, and other members of Conservation Committee, working groups and bodies. With this, we have completed this first step in this agenda, so 12.1, and we move to 12.2, which is discussion of the report that was just presented to you. So I open first the floor for contracting governments. Czech Republic, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And the first again, sorry for this. The Conservation Committee, since its foundation in 2004, has taken on a number of important issues dedicated to cetacean conservation and management. The Czech Republic, on behalf of the EU member states party to the convention, commends the vast amount of work and the significant progress that has been made since then. The IWC has taken the lead on a number of global issues. We are pleased that during the intersessional period, the Conservation Committee has continued its important work. In particular, we would like to commend the committee for: first, the vast amount of work moved forward through the strategic plan and its dedicated work plan, which are exemplary for the whole Commission. Then, the increasing impact of BIENnial, in particular through the engagement and cooperation with RFMEUs and other relevant international organizations. The completion of the whale watching handbook and its promotion via in the industry and other stakeholders. We actively commit to distributing it as well. Apologies. The continued dedication and progress on the conservation management plans. We warmly welcome the one for the South American river dolphins. The new strategic plan for ship strikes from 2022 to 2032 for this next upcoming decade. We support opening a new data manager post. The last one, stepping up the work on the impact of climate change on cetaceans and on the importance of whales for climate and for a healthy ocean. Mr. Chair, colleagues, the EU member states party to the convention are also fully committed to continuing to cooperate on other important activities within the Conservation Committee, like on marine debris, which is potentially severely impacting cetaceans populations through the effects of entanglement and ingestion, on anthropogenic underwater noise, and on chemical pollution. We also appreciate the amount of work that was put into the IWC database of recommendations. We support the endorsed aims and principles of the updated IWC database of recommendations and their incorporation into the working practices of the scientific and conservation committees. We hope that the conservation database will be successful too, and a function procedure of approval will be established. We also support the proposal of the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness on the new structure of the Commission, in which the Conservation Committee becomes one of our primary committees. We believe this will contribute to enhanced interactions and cooperation, both within the IWC as well as between the IWC and other intergovernmental organizations and multilateral environmental agreements. It is clear that the Conservation Committee's work and recommendations can lead and have led to government actions in favor of cetacean conservation. In this sense, we warmly commend the Conservation Committee's past activities and all those that have contributed to its work. We want to thank the Secretariat for its support and extend a special thanks to Lorenzo Rojas Bracho. Muchas gracias, Lorenzo, for his years of dedication as chair. We wish Kerbel and Miguel Iniguez, the incoming chair and vice chair of the Conservation Committee, all the best for their new mandates. We can assure you, you can count on our continued support. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have India.
Thank you, Chair, for giving us the floor. At the outset, we would like to place on record our deep appreciation for the hard work of the Conservation Committee and the various subcommittees in putting together on the excellent note. We would also like to highlight several steps taken by the Government of India, which is relevant to the issue raised by the Conservation Committee. India had launched the Project Dolphin for conserving both marine and freshwater systems and to secure livelihood of all stakeholders involved. In this context, the Conservation Management Plan for the Ganges and Indus River Dolphin has already been prepared, highlighted the actionable points. We would also like to add that India has made a significant effective progress in addressing issues of bycatch mitigations, especially for small cetaceans, including capacity building for training local first responders to rescue entrapped river dolphins and collecting data in order to improve long-term conservation efforts. India would also like to reiterate our commitments in reducing marine debris and express our interest in collaborating the global ghost gear initiatives in line with the already existing incentivized ghost gear tackling initiatives existing in India. India is also carrying out successfully for river and coastal management strategies for conservation of marine mammals and habitats. Chair, one of the issues flagged by the Conservation Committee in their presentations was the challenges faced in gaining the buy-in from the participating governments. We would like to add that there needs to be more active, transparent, and open participations from the committees in engaging with the member countries, and strongly recommend that we support a more inclusive approach to discussions with increased representations from the regional representations. Thank you.
Thank you. I have New Zealand followed by Australia.
Thank you, Chair. New Zealand echoes others this morning in thanking the chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee for their work in progressing the Conservation Committee agenda. As has been made clear, the work program is comprehensive and active. New Zealand is a strong supporter of the Conservation Committee, and we consider its work as vital to the long-term conservation and management of cetaceans. Innovations like the bycatch mitigation and stranding initiatives, the conservation database, the entanglement work, and new discussions on ecosystem functioning demonstrate that the extensive range of technical expertise is available to our Commission, and we encourage all members to participate in the Conservation Committee, including its capacity building activities. And can I just add to the Chair's comments about the whale watching handbook? New Zealand was pleased to provide support for that handbook, and we see it as a welcome and practical resource for operators as ecotourism sectors recover from the global pandemic. We encourage lots of interaction with the handbook because the way that it is set up on the internet does allow that interaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Australia followed by Argentina.
Thank you, Chair. Australia welcomes the report from the Conservation Committee and thanks all of those responsible for the work. It is really gratifying to see so nicely presented the work that has evolved over a little more than a decade from when this committee was established, albeit in perhaps controversial circumstances. But what's clear from the report now is the work is having real-world effects on improving the outcomes and interactions between humans and marine mammals all around the world. And I would hope this is seen and it seems reflected as something that benefits all members of this commission. So we particularly thank everyone involved, but I do want to take a moment to particularly add to the thanks to our good friend, the Commissioner from Mexico, Lorenzo Rojas, who has undertaken this journey for over a decade. It's been a huge amount of work and he's driven massive change through the committee. I gather rumours have reached me that a man looking very much like him was on the dance floor last night. It's unconfirmed. It may or may not have been Lorenzo. But we really thank him so much for all his work. It has real effect and he can be very proud. We also thank the outgoing chairs of some of the subcommittees, Stephanie, who has so ably led the work on the bycatch initiative, and Ryan, similarly so on whale watching, and we welcome the new chairs into those roles. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have Argentina followed by Brazil.
Gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos por el reporte presentado. También queremos agradecer a Lorenzo y a Kat, al igual que a todo el Comité de Conservación por su trabajo. Argentina apoya las recomendaciones surgidas del Comité de Conservación y es un comité que se ha consolidado desde su establecimiento en el año 2004 y trabajando en conjunto con el Comité Científico ha abordado temáticas de sumo interés hoy en día en lo que se refiere a la conservación de los cetáceos y de los océanos en general. Queremos entonces, justamente por estos motivos, invitar a todos a sumarse al trabajo del Comité de Conservación, que como ya fue expresado anteriormente, creemos que es algo que nos interesa absolutamente a todos. Finalmente, deseo agradecer mucho a Lorenzo por su gran tarea durante todos estos años liderando al Comité de Conservación. Y en lo personal, deseo agradecerles a todos por el apoyo brindado y pretendo, por supuesto, trabajar en conjunto con Kat, con todos los líderes del grupo, el Comité Científico, la Secretaría y el resto de toda la gran familia que es la Comisión Ballenera. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I have Brazil, followed by Chile.
Thank you. I would like to add our voice to the President speakers in thanking the work of the Conservation Committee, in particular Lorenzo Rojas for his dedication to this work for 6 years. And we also want to wish all the success and good work for the future chairman and vice chairman of the committee. We think that the themes that have been that are part of the Conservation Committee are important themes for the future and ones that we have to address with care. Congratulations, Lorenzo, for the work, and thank you very much to the Conservation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Chile, followed by Costa Rica.
Gracias, señor presidente. Chile apoya, desde luego, todas las recomendaciones emanadas del Comité Científico y felicita el trabajo que se ha llevado a cabo en todos estos años, liderado por el comisionado de México, Lorenzo. Y en particular quisiéramos hacer notar la extensa agenda del Comité de Conservación, que incluye tantos y variados temas que han ido avanzando no solo dentro de la Comisión, sino que en otros organismos internacionales, hacia promover la conservación de los cetáceos y de los océanos en general. En particular, quisiera referirme al tema de los cetáceos y su contribución al funcionamiento de los ecosistemas, ya que si bien la información existe científica del 2010, no fue sino hasta que la Comisión Biennial Internacional impulsó el reconocimiento de estos a nivel dentro de la Comisión, es que otros organismos internacionales han ido avanzando y hoy se ve el reconocimiento de ellos como una solución basada en la naturaleza para enfrentar las diversas crisis que estamos teniendo. Este trabajo es de suma importancia, así como la conservación y todos los esfuerzos de conservación que se están realizando para los cetáceos, ya que dependemos, ¿verdad?, para enfrentar estas crisis de océanos saludables. Así que en este sentido quisiera agradecer a todos los que han podido contribuir en este ámbito, no solo dentro de la Comisión Biennial Internacional, sino que hay muchos especialistas y expertos que se han sumado hacia estos esfuerzos. Ya vemos que este tema está siendo discutido en el Fondo Monetario Internacional, en el IPES, en la Conferencia de los Océanos de las Naciones Unidas, en la CMS, en la CBD, donde hay muchos expertise que han permitido y van a seguir consolidando este tema en el futuro, porque justamente son los esfuerzos del Comité de Conservación, como los que están expuestos ahí en el Comité de Conservación, los que van a ir permitiendo realmente abordar estas crisis. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you. Costa Rica, followed by the US.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Nada más queríamos remembrar, y Costa Rica ha estado dando seguimiento desde sus inicios al Comité de Conservación. Nos hemos complacido mucho con el trabajo que ha hecho Lorenzo. Estamos de México, estamos muy contentos en que se nombrara al señor Miguel Iñiguez de Argentina como vicepresidente del Comité de Conservación, porque sabemos que son dos personas, dos profesionales que muestran la calidad tan alta de perfil que tenemos en nuestra región latinoamericana. De nuevo, agradecer a Lorenzo por su trabajo, por haber sido un pionero en este tema, y darle la bienvenida a Miguel, sabiendo que efectivamente va a ser un trabajo impecable, también como su predecesor. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The US.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll be brief, as the United States can associate itself with the many speakers before me who commented on the important work of this committee. But I do want to thank Kat for her report and take a moment to welcome her and Miguel in their new roles as chair and vice chair of this committee, and join others in congratulating Lorenzo and thanking him for his many years of exemplary leadership of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, the list of contracting government is empty. I have now Scientific Committee. Please pass the mic to Scientific Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Scientific Committee and the Conservation Committee have been working more closely in the last several years, and I think a lot because of the efforts by Lorenzo and Kat in getting the two groups together. And I think I can say in the name of the Scientific Committee leadership and the whole committee that it's been a pleasure to work with both of them during this last several years. So we'd like to welcome Kat as the new chair of the Conservation Committee and welcome Miguel as the new vice chair. We look forward to working with them in the years to come. And we wish Lorenzo the best in his next endeavors and hope that he continues to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Non-member governments, IGOs, NGOs. I see no request for the floor. UK, please.
It's just really to finish things off and to finish the thank yous. Lindsay and myself got Lorenzo something bubbly, as we promised we would, Lorenzo, which maybe will help with the dancing this afternoon. Lindsay is on her way.
Okay, Lorenzo, you also have the mic, not just the president.
Well, I just want to thank the nice words from all the friends.
Yes.
Well, it seems someone knows me pretty well. Well, thanks again for all the kind words and the beautiful present here. It was a pleasure working with everybody. I also enjoyed every minute working with Kat. It was lovely. But I have to thank against the Secretariat because they have played a key role and we wouldn't be here if it was not for their efforts, particularly now with Imogen and Ellie. I also like to thank someone that sometimes we forget are the interpreters, which help us work and communicate perfectly. But also I like to thank Stephanie that is stepping down together with me. So I'll share a glass of champagne with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we have just one step to do, which is to adopt the report and the work plan. So can we consider the meeting reports from 2020 and 2022 adopted and its recommendations as endorsed and the work plan adopted? Any objections? I see none, so I consider the report adopted. We also have the agenda sub-item any other matters. Any interventions under this sub-item? If not, then we can close the agenda item 12, Conservation Committee. And as we are a bit ahead of time, I would just like to use the opportunity to check if we return to the agenda item 6.3, which is biennial, discussion on biennial budget. I would check with Australia if they can very briefly present if there is already a need or not. No, not yet. Okay, thank you. Then I would not keep you here any longer as we have quite some things to do during the lunch break and quite some meetings will take place. So I adjourn the session for the morning and we will meet here again at 2 o'clock, hopefully sharp. So enjoy your meal. Thank you.